Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that today has a new, very, very insistent co-host. My name is Tosin and I am the host of the podcast that watches a couple of things in the cinema each week, watches a couple of things on streaming platforms each week, and sees where money has been better spent. That's what we do at this podcast, and joining me as usual to do this are, on the Isle of Wight, is Sharon Bollen, Shaun Harris.
Hello there.
Yes, how are you guys been doing this week?
Yeah, good. It's all right.
Busy,
What week?
getting ready for the coronation.
Oh yes, the coronation. Anybody planning anything special for the coronation?
We've got a party on Monday. We're not doing our volunteering on Monday because it's supposed to be party Saturday, Sunday, isn't it? And coronation Saturday, party Sunday, and then volunteer Monday. But we are doing church Sunday and then party on the Monday. So we're having a party. I've got people coming around on Saturday to watch it, and then church is going to be church, which is normally fun anyway. Then we're getting ready for a party on Monday at the church for anyone who wants to come.
All right, cool, good stuff. I have pretty much forgotten that it's happening until people remind me that there's no work on because it's a bank holiday, and I'm like, oh what? Oh yeah, that thing. So, and every now and then I see a sign for a street party. How about you, Shaun? Doing anything for the coronation?
Not really. Not
No.
for me. It's not for me. I'm afraid for me, I mean, maybe possibly, but I just really loathe Camilla with a passion. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people, and I seriously believe that the papers, and I hate to say this, but sometimes I think I see in the future, and I don't mean to sound smug or nothing, but I could just tell. I mean, obviously, my mother reads the Daily Mail and speaks for herself, but they slowly let Camilla back in, and they started to ingratiate her more and more because she was a hated woman. She was loathed.
Hated for a
But
while.
now,
To be honest with you, I always quite liked her, so I'm quite pleased because I like her.
yeah, I know. She's very Marmite, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
think she's
okay.
a horrible. Anyway, we can't really talk about.
Okay,
that.
no, Shaun. I think that is your audition to become a writer for the next season of The Crown. So,
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Queen, and I'm one of these people that think Charles should have stepped down and let William take over. I really believe that, because it's funny. I spoke to many students today, about 14 years, and all of them are like not interested. They're just not interested at all. No, seriously, I was quite surprised. I said, they go, oh, what? No, don't really worry about that.
well,
So
yeah,
I reckon
but
it's a dying institution.
well, yeah. Anyway, we don't have enough time for my viewpoint
No.
because we could be here a while. So let's go quickly on to. Obviously, we go to the cinema. As I say, we see hopefully about 3 things each week. Usually, the sort of like last bastion fighting for the right of cinema is Shaun on this podcast. He's the one who's always making it to the cinema. So Shaun, I'm going to ask you, what did you see this week? Let's start with that.
Okay.
What did you see in the cinemas this week?
In cinemas this week, I saw the Evil Dead Rise. Or last week, we did do last week. So the couple of weeks, Evil Dead Rise.
Yep.
I saw D'Artagnan, Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan.
Ooh.
I saw Aliens, the director's cut cinema, Green One, a glorious big thing. And it was absolutely packed. It was packed. It was a packed. And all those films, when I've been now, RoboCop, Aliens.
When did the sort of like decades anniversary, like 25th anniversary?
Yeah. And it was the director's cut as well. So it had the automatic sentries and all the sort of Newt's family and all that. So it was, I mean, that was an experience. That was we come out of there like chuffed as monkeys. But I don't think that counts because I've seen that before a few times. So and then I went to see Guardians
of the Galaxy.
But we're saving that. We're going to save that one because
we're saving that because you must have seen Guardians of the Galaxy last night. We're recording this on Thursday.
To see it last night. Yeah.
I went because
to 3:50 showing. Yeah.
Because Holly isn't here with us today, but Holly had sent a message saying that she had gone to see Guardians, and I was like, "What? It's out?" straight up didn't even realize that the film had been released because it was only released last night. So we're gonna keep Guardians until next week. You can never accuse us of not having a finger on the pulse. So, so we're gonna leave Guardians until next week. But this week we're gonna. So you said Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan, and what was the other one?
And the Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise. Sharon, what did you see in the cinema this week?
I've seen The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry at the cinema.
Okay, cool. And how about home?
At home, I have seen season 2 of Carnival Row, which is on Amazon Prime.
Ooh, season 2 and final.
Yes.
Of Carnival Row. All right, cool. So we have Three Musketeers. We have Carnival Row. How about you, Shaun?
Oh, on the screen, I've been catching up on some old stuff, but I have seen the whole lot of The Mandalorian now.
Yes, The Mandalorian. I have seen that too.
Yes. So I've seen Mandalorian. I also I've been watching some old movies. I rewatched Alfred the Great. This is 1967 film with David Hemmings about Alfred the Great. And there was a surprise. I was looking at this young person that was like, I recognise that face. My God, that's young Ian McKellen. And he's got one of the villagers that lives in the fens. I said, that is Ian McKellen. My goodness me. So I mean, I don't know if I like that one or not. Alfred the Great, and what was the other one I watched? Wild Geese. And I started watching one about artificial intelligence. I can't remember what it was called. It was like they were in the room, but I haven't finished yet. Yeah. So,
okay, cool, good stuff.
And the football, of course.
And of course the football. And at home, I have finished I watched a film called Ghosted on Apple TV Plus. And Ghosted it's getting a lot of, because it has Chris Evans, fresh off Captain, not fresh off anymore, but he was Captain America in the MCU. And it has Shaun's former Belle de Jour, Ana de Armas, in it. So you have beautiful people doing beautiful things. And so this film has been gathering a lot of internet stuff. So I watched Ghosted. So let us kick off. Let's see, how do we do this? Yes, that's what we're going to do. Let's kick off with a film that I would have put money on Sharon being the one to see in the cinemas. And this is the Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan.
Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan, yeah.
Okay, so Shaun, you saw it. Go on, go ahead, tell us about it.
I think I actually contacted Sharon as well, but she couldn't make it because, I mean, I've decided now, because it's easier to sort of go to a fairly early performance, but with Sharon sometimes she can't make the time. So, but I would love her to see this because she's read the book. Okay, so, I mean, most of the story, know the story of I'm pretty certain they must know the story of the Three Musketeers. There's or D'Artagnan. He goes to join the Musketeers. He's going to join the Musketeers, and he gets into a bit of an argument with three of them, and he ends up getting in a duel with three of them, and they meet up, and then Cardinal Richelieu's soldiers turn up. There's a bit of a fight, and they all get a bit of comradeship. The Three Musketeers and D'Artagnan, and then obviously it's. The Queen is supposedly loves actually Buckingham, I think, who's from England, and to show an affection of love, she leaves some jewels, and Buckingham takes them to England, and the King Louis says, when we have this party, you need to produce. You must show them at the wedding, or at someone's wedding. And so you've got this intrigue. You've got this really lovely spy called Milady, played by Eva Green.
Milady de Winter
is absolutely fantastic as always. I think I rate her very, very highly. And so you've got a lot of intrigue and a lot of action. And it's. I mean, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But I would assume that this is probably closer to the book than any of the others. And it's in French. It's all in French with subtitles, with English subtitles. So it's all in French. And I mean, I know a little bit of French, and I could understand some of it, but they do go pretty fast. And now I can understand why people say, like when you meet foreign people and they say, slow down, don't talk. Don't talk so fast. And then I can hear you. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, slow down, and I can get you. But lucky enough, you've got the subtitles. Anyway, so Yeah, so that's the story. And I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And do you know what I liked about it is, you know me, my banality
Yeah.
or whatever you call it, when I like things stuck, you know,
Yep.
they're musketeers. They use muskets and guns. But in all the other stuff, it's always swords. Yes, they do use swords in this, and they're good swordsmen. But they use muskets, and they are musketeers. You know,
Yeah.
so they're going to use muskets.
Yeah.
Um, and
Until this moment, I never realized where the name came from.
no, oh right, okay. You thought it was just like a book, yeah?
No, that is not. It's never occurred to me. I used to go. It was one of the things I used to go. Why are they called musketeers? Oh, never mind. Sword fight.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the whole school where all the musketeers are, and they're actually practicing the muskets. And do you know what I mean? It just so happens that these three, D'Artagnan, Athos, and Porthos, they are good. They are good swordsmen to boot with the guns.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of gunplay. And like when he's galloping for England, D'Artagnan, they thought they got a horse and they changed the horses. So it's like the old Pony Express where he's galloping away. And you know a horse can't gallop forever, and he gets off and gets on another horse, and I was like, "Mom, someone's really thought about that, you know? Someone's really thought about that." And yeah, I mean, I think this is a really, really class movie, and I'm assuming it is a lot more to the novel than which is why I really want Sharon to see it.
This is only the first part. There's going to be a second part that's going to be released later this year. I think November or something.
Milady.
And the thing about it is that this is the first time, weirdly enough. So you have Three Musketeers, this great Alexandre Dumas French novel, and this is the first time they've ever actually done a French version of a French film version of the Three Musketeers, which I thought was madness. I was like, come on, there must have been a silent really? What? Like the French they've never actually done so. All you've ever had is like Hollywoodized versions. Like, you know, for instance, when you talk about Milady de Winter, as far as I'm concerned, Rebecca de Mornay will always have a special place in my heart because she was the first Milady de Winter I ever saw in the Disney version of The Three Musketeers, which I spoke about a couple of weeks ago with Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt, Kiefer Sutherland, Chris O'Donnell as D'Artagnan, which is totally nothing like the book.
Is that the one with like the balloon ships and all that? Is that the one? Is there one?
No,
they did one with like where they come in balloons and stuff, don't they?
This one doesn't have, but actually maybe it does.
It's like a big ship, like a big balloon zeppelin.
I don't think there's a ship, but there's definitely a scene of Chris O'Donnell hanging from a balloon, swinging through a forest or something like that. I think I remember that. It had Tim Curry as Cardinal Richelieu, and he had Michael Wincott as his his right hand man. And I love that film, even though and I was even surprised to find out that there were some bits of that film that are in the original novel, like him having 3 duels with the Three Musketeers and everything like that. So I think it's quite interesting that this is the first time that the French have done it. And I've heard nothing but good things about this film, Shaun. So I'm actually quite happy to hear you say that you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. I thought it was I thought it was really, really well made. As I say, maybe the French have decided, well, enough of these comic, terrifically. There is some
Comedy,
light-hearted moments in it, but I think like even the ones with Oliver Reed and all those, they were okay, but they were more for laughs than And
Michael York was D'Artagnan, wasn't he?
Yeah. Whereas this, so Sharon needs to see it to let me know how close it is to the book.
I want to see it. I definitely want to try to get in there. And I think there's something like there's 4 books I think involving the different Musketeers and D'Artagnan. Most adaptations have always been the Musketeers and then Man in the Iron Mask, and they miss all the ones in the middle. So it'd be interesting if the French are going to do them, whether they do the other novels as well, or whether they just stick to the Musketeers and then jump 20 years in the future and do Man in the Iron Mask.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shaun, we know you liked it. How many stars would you give it?
I would give this a really, really high 4-star rating. I mean, the only thing I would say sometimes is probably the thing that was some of the action scenes, some of the sword play was very much not shaky cam as such, but really
gotcha.
sort of not it was one of those ones that was not all the scenes, but a lot of the fighting scenes were just a little bit I don't know what the word would be. What could you call it? Haphazard, or just like
Yeah.
fast and too fast really to see what. Do you know what I mean?
What was actually happening?
Too much, too much stuff going on. Too fast, too furious, sort of thing. Not that I want to make a film.
You just made me think of something. Could you imagine if the John Wick guys did a Musketeers movie? What would that look like?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. I'll keep thinking about that. But okay. 4 stars for the Three Musketeers.
Strong 4 stars. Yes.
Good stuff. Strong 4 stars for that. And now we will move over to Netflix and Friends, and we will talk Carnival Row. Carnival Row season 2. Sharon.
Yeah, Carnival Row season 2 takes off more or less straight away from where season 1 ended. Just to sort of give you a bit recap, Carnival Row is set in a world sort of pre and sort of mid-industrial age. So if it was to talk to us, it'd be like the mid 19th century type thing. They've got steam trains, they've got guns, and they've been engaged in this war. But unlike sort of our world, creatures of mythology actually exist. So you have got fairies, you've got fauns and satyrs, and you've got any number of mythological creatures, but they live in the real world. And there's one of the lands in which the fairies have inhabited has been the source of a battle between these two sort of Western, we use our terms like two Western powers have been fighting over this land where the fairies live. And it has been sort of conquered. So the fairies and other fae folk have been sort of dispersed, and they've ended up in this one particular land where they have been used as cheap labor. They're immigrants, so they live in like ghettos. They're used as cheap labor. They're used as the serving classes. They're not represented in parliament, and there's a growing sort of sense of dissatisfaction. And in the first season, all this sort of came to a head when basically all the fae folk, or Critch as they're nicknamed, are put into this ghetto, a walled ghetto. And this second season starts with basically they're in this ghetto, and then they're trying to sort of work out where to go from there. The political parties are trying to, some of them are like pro, sort of like giving the fae a bit more sort of representation or advancing their rights, and others like, no, they're a menace, they're just a pest, we need to get rid of these immigrants to our land, they just like take our resources there. There's lots of parallels to what immigration and sort of racism and other isms, but there's lots of parallels, but they're sort of using this sort of construct for it.
I remember thinking that about the first season of Carnival Row. I didn't see much of it, but I did think that it was a very, very unsubtle parallel to the world today.
So everyone who's different is one of the fae, basically, and it's a little bit of a blunt tool in that it's like fae good, everyone else bad, and it's like, well, actually that's a bit too simplistic, isn't it, really? So I mean, I think this season is trying to be a bit more nuanced. One of the countries, called the Pack, has had like a red revolution led by this faun and they have basically created like communism in their town, and then this sort of revolution is spreading to the other parts of the Critch. But like the first season, the main characters are played by Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne, and he's a half fae, he's half fairy, half human, and she is fae, and they met during the war, and she thought he had died in the war, and then they met up again in this land, and they restarted their relationship. But now their relationship, they're beginning to sort of see the strains of it, having how they're as much as they love each other, they're sort of drawn apart. She's got involved in this group called the Black Raven, which is like this sort of radical group that thinks that need to do to fight, use violence, use sort of direct means of sort of protest to try to fight the cause of the fae. And he's more about, he wants to work within the system that's there, working within the police and then possibly politics. And so you see this conflict sort of expands. It becomes a bit more or less about the interpersonal relationships this time, and more about the politics of the various different states. So you see, the politics, how someone on the surface of it looks like they're pro fae, but they're really working for their own ends. and others where you think, yeah, they're looking at the economic value of the people who live there and the conflicts with other nations, how actually war can be quite good business because it means, you know, you produce weapons and other things, and others are looking at, all these different parties sort of see it from their own point of view. So you have this sort of this series is much more political. It's much more about you've got these big issues, and then when you break it down, there are loads of shades of grey rather than everything being sort of neatly divided into good versus evil. In each of these areas, there's more subtlety. So it's more subtle, but a bit more complicated and much more political than the first season.
So it does more of a Game of Thrones than, let's say, the first season did. Like, you know how there's shades of grey as opposed to black and white.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and the first season I think was more about the sort of, not the romance of it, but it was more romantic in that it was about these two people sort of finding themselves again. And there was another couple he was a fawn and she was like a privileged sort of white lady with who, like I said, it's like this sort of mixed race, as it were, or mixed species in this case, sort of relationship.
Yeah.
And this time you see this sort of how that's a bit more strained in this season because other influences come to bear, and there was an underlying sort of murder mystery sort of thing running through it. And in this case, there's another, like, some horrible murders are happening, and they're trying to work out what the cause of them is. So you've got this sort of dual sort of timelines and stories. But no, it was good. It was more complicated, more political, but slightly less sort of romantic. There was the odd, sort of, amorous encounter, but it was less of a sort of the romance wasn't the most dominant storyline in it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's worth a watch if you like your fantasy and sort of like world building fantasy. It's certainly worth exploring because it does look at all the different elements within how you build a world. It's like the politics, the religion, the sort of the social economics, the work, it's sort of the different cultures versus and classes. It sort of throws all that in the mix. So it's really interesting from like a world building perspective if you're interested in that sort of thing.
So is it like a ghetto where all the Fae are? It's just it's like a ghetto.
They've been confined into this sort of ghetto after the last season where a big thing happened, and so all of the Fae have been told, right, you have to live here, and you can only come out if you have like a pass. If you don't have a pass, you're stuck in the ghetto.
Bit like the Warsaw ghetto then.
Like the Warsaw ghetto.
Yeah,
I think also, I'm not sure if they've carried this in from the first season, but I remember thinking that Carnival Row kind of looked like where Oliver Twist might live.
Yes, it's that sort of mid-Victorian sort of look about it,
yeah.
where the women wear sort of the long dresses and the men wear, if they're wealthy, it's like the sharp suits and the hats and the long sort of dress coats and overcoats and the canes, and whereas waistcoats and sort of the fob watches, that sort of look. And the wealthy women have got like that. It's sort of like the end of the Victorian era because the women are like corseted but with like bustles, that sort of look, rather than the crinoline. So you're looking at the firmly sort of 1880s, 1890s sort of fashion, where they've sort of drawn on. But it's interesting sort of things they've drawn on to inspire it. And then it sort of draws in like the whole Russian Revolution thing is drawn into it with this, the Pact, Red Revolution. Yes, so there's interesting parallels to history in there.
So obviously you didn't like the first season enough to come back for the second season, and the main question I have is, we've already been told that this is the final season. Is it satisfying?
It does that whole bit at the end where you see each of the main characters where they are, but it does leave quite a bit left open. It does leave the door open for you to speculate as about what could happen next. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. It wasn't a complete ending, as in that it sort of tied up everything neatly. It left a few things open to you to sort of think, I wonder where he's going to end up. But no, it was certainly worth it was worth a watch, and it was an interesting conclusion rather than an entirely satisfying conclusion.
All right, cool. So how many stars would you give Carnival Row season 2?
I think I didn't like it as much as the first one. I didn't think, because again, you have to pay a bit more attention to it, and there's some elements where I was thinking you're labouring the point a little bit here. The parallels between the communist revolution and other things. I thought, yeah, this is becoming a little bit too obvious.
But that's the show's tone. That's the show's reason that's the reason for existing, is to labor the point.
Yeah. So it was a little bit packed, a bit more heavy-handed. Though there was a couple of unexpected deaths, which I think was quite interesting. It had the whole Game of Thrones thing where some of the have been principal characters, which is probably why it's the last season, is because some of them you're thinking they were like there's a threat of death, and you're thinking, oh, something's going to happen, they're going to get away at the last minute, and actually they don't. They get a couple of characters who die,
good. I like that.
and you're like, wow, I didn't actually think you were going to kill them off.
Yeah.
So that was interesting that they actually did that, but they probably at that point they knew they weren't going to have a third season. So that's probably why they did it.
Doesn't matter.
No, it was interesting. I'd give it 3 stars because I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I think give it a couple of years, and I'll probably thinking, Carnival Row. Oh yeah, I remember that. But it's not going to be one that's going to sit with me for a long time, I don't think.
All right, so 3 stars. 3 stars for Carnival Row season 2. And now
you've gone mute on me, so I don't know if it's
you've gone mute on me as well. I can't hear you.
Oh. So
we can't hear you, Toes.
Oh, one second. Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to protect you guys from a giggling 2-year-old. I'm not sure if you heard her giggling. I'm not sure if you heard her giggling all the way through your like there was a bit where she was giggling as you were speaking, Sharon. Apparently, she thinks Carnival Row is hilarious, even though she's not allowed to watch it because she's way too young.
Yeah, there's a few scenes. No, you're not watching that.
You are not allowed to watch that. No, Kemi, no. So okay, now let's go on to let's go with Evil Dead Rise.
Dead Rise.
Yeah, so Shaun, tell us about Evil Dead Rise. I mean, that's a name that I think most people who have watched films would be familiar with the first 2 words of that.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the thing is, this is the funny thing. I haven't seen the 2 original. I haven't seen the original of I haven't seen the original of
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead, yeah. I haven't seen the first Evil Dead.
Yeah, me neither.
One. So, I mean, I'm aware of it, and I know what sort of goes on, and I'm sure in this there are many nods to the original, but I would.
Oh, Shaun? Sharon, has Shaun frozen for you as well?
Yes, he has.
Okay, cool. So...
Frozen mid.
Anyway, so basically, it's a spooky girl.
Shaun, hang on a second.
Around a bit. She's up with bands and stuff, and she becomes pregnant.
Shaun,
we lost you for a moment there, Shaun.
We lost you for a moment. Yeah, we lost you for a moment. Okay, and I think now we have a delay.
Oh right, okay. I wonder why that is then.
Okay, so Shaun, I'm gonna say 1, and then you say 2 immediately after you hear me say 1. 1,
2.
Okay, that's all right. Keep on talking. But start again from the beginning because we missed out everything after you said you hadn't seen Evil Dead 1 or 2.
Okay, so yeah, I haven't seen Evil Dead 1 or 2, so I'm assuming that in this movie there's a lot of nods to the originals, which I wouldn't know apart from the chainsaw, because I mean that's probably the most famous bit.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. I haven't seen them either, but there's a lot of things from them that have just sort of entered into the general consciousness.
Yeah, that's it. So I think it's all to do with the Book of the Dead and the Necronomicon or something. Anyway, so basically this girl, she's a groupie. She becomes pregnant. She goes to visit her sister, who's a single mother of 2 kids, and she goes to their apartment. And then there's a bit of an earthquake, and one of the cracks, one of the young lad who's probably about, I don't know, 15, 16. He's a DJ. He's got loads of DJ stuff in his room, and he decides that he finds these records, these old records, these old vinyl records, and a book which has got some rather nasty pictures in, like it was. And of course, he's young, so he decides he's going to play these records. You know, it's like,
why wouldn't you? Come on.
So yeah, and then the book goes on a bit crazy, and some strange sort of things happen, and people get possessed and what have you. So yeah, because he doesn't finish the whole ritual thing, you know, this thing. Anyway, so yeah, what can we say about it? It was quite fun. It wasn't horror or jumpy, or for me personally, I didn't. I mean, I don't know if other people might have jumped, or they tried the old jump scares, But
Yeah, but Shaun, we know famously like nothing scares you.
Nothing scares me.
We know that, yeah.
So yeah, but it was quite funny and it was quite amusing. And I mean, like some of the voices when it goes, I mean, it's in the trailers, a lot of the stuff, mummies with the maggots, and that was quite funny. So basically, yeah, it starts off with one horrible spirit becoming possessed. Have you lost me again?
No, still here.
So it starts off with one spirit becoming a little bit one spirit, and then some things happen, and some of the neighbours, and because it's a big high-rise building, and I like the bit where he goes, "Oh, this blooming thing with a shotgun." He comes out with a shotgun and tries to shoot this possessed thing, and of course doesn't have a lot of effect. He's like, "I want to come in," ooh. And so all the neighbours start, all the people, all the neighbours and stuff, they're all starting to become more possessed and all that, and they're all in these really, really weird things, like they've been all crushed and that, and then they go, and they all come back together. So you've got a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't watch that many horror movies. Sorry, I was gonna say I don't watch that many horror movies, but it seems to be like that's the thing now. That now in horror movies, there's a lot of this sort of contorted limbs thing that goes on, and like and they have like
that's it. Yeah.
And having not seen the original Evil Dead, I don't know if that was originally the Evil Dead movies or whether that's just something that has just come in now as the flavor of how horror movies are made.
Yeah, well, I think probably that's a lot to do with it, because what with the the CGI and all that sort of stuff, they can make it seem quite easy, can't they, really? So yeah, I don't know if the other ones were supposed to be like horror comedies. I've got a feeling they might have been.
Well, I think Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2 and Evil Dead 3 were definitely horror comedies. Like, I think from what I hear, Evil Dead 1 is supposed to be a bit more serious, but Evil Dead 2 is just like supposed to be laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Is it still got Ash, the main character, in it?
No, Ash isn't in it. This is like totally. Have you seen them? Have you seen them, Sharon?
I've seen. I think again, I can't remember if I've seen them all, but I certainly have seen some of them. But they're one of those things that it's probably in the 80s when I did see them when they first came out. So they burned in with every other horror film I saw at the time, I think.
Yeah, it was a real trend, wasn't it? Horror films, slashers and horrors.
I think if you're going to talk about golden age of horror, it was probably the 80s. So late 70s going into the 80s. That's when
the birth of the home video player basically was like the boom in. Most of them were straight to video, weren't they? Let's face it.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the whole, I don't know what the others are like, but I found this one quite amusing, actually. I thought it was, I didn't hate it or think. I saw it for what it was, and it was a bit comedic. You know what I mean? They had a lot of blood. There's obviously a nod to The Shining with like the lift getting full of blood. Filling up with blood, and so there's blood and gore and limbs getting hacked and what have you, and then joining back together again and stuff. So yeah, it was and a lot of the dialogue was quite amusing, Speaking that, I found that quite amusing. So yeah, it wasn't. It was better than I expected. It was much better than I expected. And yeah, dare I say, I wouldn't say it was like marvelous or out of this world, but it was good enough for me to give it 3 stars, And I certainly would, would go to see another one of these, because yeah, it wasn't too bad at all. But as I say, there's a lot of blood in it, and gore and guts and body popping, sort of, That's all of them do that. The guy with the shotgun, he was like an old dude, and then like with the shotgun, he goes, "Give me my shotgun," you know what I mean? And he sort of, he's been blasted, he got half his head hanging off, and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay," and he picks up the shot, So yeah.
It was sort of like that seems to be a horror movie archetype. The grizzled old person who's seen it all before and is like, "Oh, I remember the Deadite invasion of '72. I was there." But
there's one bit where the chainsaw bit where she just happens to, they're trying to escape and happens to find a chainsaw, conveniently, and so obviously that's a major theme. Well, I think.
I feel like if it was an Evil Dead movie and if somebody didn't break out a chainsaw at some point, I think everybody who went to watch that film would feel cheated. So I think like if there's gonna be a chainsaw, I think everyone's just gonna go like, yeah, what else were they supposed to do?
I'm always amazed at these films though. That have you ever tried to start a chainsaw? It's not easy, and they just do it like they just flick a switch. It's like, hey, they're not easy to start. I'd be dead before I could get the chainsaw. By the time you prime it, prime it, take the safety off, and then pop it.
Unless you had an electronic chain or an electric chainsaw.
Electric one, a battery one, then your battery's going to run out, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, your battery is going to run out. But then again, the other one's going to run out of petrol. But I have to admit, it is not as fun. It is not as fun to do that with an electric chainsaw. You don't have a cord to pull. It's like when you have
by accident, then it stops.
It's like when you have a shotgun. You know when you have a shotgun and move that. That's half the joy of having a shotgun. It's like, okay, we've got a machine gun that can kill a whole bunch of people in it. But no, what we're going to use? We're going to use a shotgun. Why? Because it makes that sound and it's cool. Yeah. And I think the same thing with the chainsaw. You pull the cord.
I think it's that because when with the petrol ones, they tend to sort of they've got an uneven sound, don't they? They sort of tend to go.
They have more character. Essentially, petrol chainsaws are better actors than electric chainsaws. Is what we're saying.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
they are better actors. All right, cool. So 3 stars for Evil Dead Rise, which considering it's a horror movie, that's actually quite big.
Quite good.
It's quite big praise from Shaun. It's quite big because usually anytime we review a horror movie, Shaun just sits down here and goes, "Oh, for goodness sake!" and then the review continues in that vein. So now we go back to Netflix and Friends, this time Disney Plus, and we are going to talk The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian Season 3. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a priority of what this is about. So The Mandalorian, if you know, this is set after the first original trilogy of Star Wars movies. So the Empire has crumbled, Darth Vader's been killed, the Death Star's blown up, all that sort of stuff. And then you have this guy he's part of he's from a planet called Mandalore, and there's a bunch of these people. He's part of a sect of these people, and they're known for their battle armor. They're known for being warriors, and they're known for their battle armor. But his sect of this battle armor, they believe that once you put the armor on, you never take it off. You never show anybody your face. You never show anybody your helmet. And this is played by Pedro Pascal, which is weird because it's played by Pedro Pascal, but you never see his face. So you never see his face. And the show is famous for Baby Yoda because the first 2 seasons were largely about Baby Yoda, Kemi, Baby Yoda. So the first 2 seasons were largely about this, the relationship between him and this small Yoda baby creature, and how they were coming together, and it was like they had this sort of almost sort of mission of the week structure where they would do different things, and but underlying you had this whole thing where they were coming closer and closer together, almost like a family, and the way and I complained because I saw the first 2 episodes a couple of weeks back with Shaun, and I asked Shaun, does it get any better? Because the first 2 episodes of this season, I still maintain, are not a good watch. Because what happened is, I think at the end of season 2, they had brought the story to a place where the original driving force of the whole story, which was the Mandalorian and, well, to give him his given name, Grogu, Baby Yoda, that story had come to a natural place to stop. And then the beginning of the season, it's like them scrabbling around for, oh my God, what do we do now? Okay, now we've got to restart the story and we've got to do this, but it can't be the story we told before. So there's all this exposition at the beginning to try and set up a new thing to make it seem as important as the old thing. And I will tend to somebody who's yelling at me right now and let Shaun talk. Shaun, what did you think?
Okay, well, yeah, here we go. I agree with what you say. It was a little bit of a slow burn, and I totally agree with you the first 2 episodes, and I can see where you're coming from. But did I tell you when you asked? Did I say to stick with it? I think I did, didn't I? So
yeah, you said stick with it. You said stick with it.
Yeah, and so it'd be interesting you did stick with it, obviously. And yeah, I mean, what a great the penultimate and the last episode were just like super payback, Star Wars heaven. Everybody I've spoken to that has actually seen it has loved it. They've said, oh man, that is like the best ever payoff. You know, it's just like it's all there, and yeah, no, it was great. It's one of the best things I've seen, I think, to do with the Star Wars franchise. So yeah, for me, it was a real payoff. But I know what you're saying about the first 2 episodes, because I was with you a little bit. I was like, you know, where's this going? Where's this going? And then you get the, we're gonna take it back, and it's just like, you know, you didn't like it. I can see on your face. You're not so keen.
Well, the problem was that it was kind of like, what I loved about the first 2 seasons is that there was a simplicity to them.
Yeah.
There was a simplicity to them. There was what's happening is this guy and this baby. They're trying to get from here there against the world. We're trying to see whether they can get some training. It was streamlined. It was like, you know, and it very, very much leaned into the Western tropes, into the whole thing of like, because the Mandalorian is pretty much the man with no name, and like some of the shots and everything like that were very Western, and it was simple. It was lean. And then in this season, they seem to be trying to change it and turn it into almost like a Lord of the Rings type thing, where it's no longer lean, it's now a bit bigger, it's now a bit, this person, and it almost seems as if they changed the main character. So when they're talking about the Mandalorian, it's like it's no longer about the original Mandalorian, but it's now almost as if the Mandalorian that we're talking about is Bo-Katan Kryze.
Yeah, I've never, do you know, yeah, I've actually, do you know, I never thought of that, Tosin, but I can see where you're coming from now. He's become very much from a loner to a sort of team player, isn't he? Whereas before in the other series, he was a loner. Yeah, he was a Eastwood loner character, you know, the man with no name. But now he's more like Magnificent Seven sort of character, you know.
Well, yeah, it's just changed. The show has, I think the show has fundamentally changed. And one of the big things I've thought is like, okay, so you have Grogu, Baby Yoda. He's pretty much not in this season at all. Anytime you see him, he's supposed to be like some sort of like light relief or comic relief that I do not think works. Like, you know, the whole yes, no.
Oh, yeah,
I did not like that.
With IG 95 or whatever.
IG 11. Yeah, I was like, why the hell are you going back to him? Why the hell are you going? Like, they keep doing things. They kept doing things in the show that I did not think made sense. Because first, okay, let's take the IG 11 thing. I was like, why? And the explanation for why they bring IG 11 back into the storyline for me does not work. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. And then what they eventually end up doing with IG 11, I'm like, what? And I'm like, why did you do that? And what happens is, okay, so let me put it this way: with IG 11, I don't want to give too many spoilers. So Shaun, I'm just going to say this for you. But there's a bit where I was looking at it going, surely it is easier and quick for you to float around than to do that.
Yeah, good point. Good observation.
I was like, it's easy. Yeah, for me, I think the show is trying to change what it is, because I think they realized that after the first 2 seasons, they wrapped it up. They wrapped it up nicely, and then they had to figure out a way of getting this thing going again. And so they had to come up with a whole new story that they haven't really bothered about beforehand, but they're now trying to get you invested in it. And it took about 4 episodes of 8 before they actually got to the point of what they were trying to do with that story. And I think my favorite episodes of this was when it went back to almost like, you know, the thing of the week, like the bit where they go to that island, they go to that planet where all the other Mandalorians are, and they say all the robots are going crazy. We need to figure out why the robots are going crazy. I really liked that episode. And then when they went, okay, now we need to go back and take Mandalore, I was like, oh.
But see, I mean, all the ships, all the battles, all the thing, that was proper Star Warsy stuff. That's what you like to see. As I say, my favourite Star Wars movie is Rogue One. I mean, those last few episodes with the big battles where they're taking the planet back, and you've got all the X-wing and the TIE fighters, and you got all there were some bits in the Praetorian Guard and all that stuff. And I was in heaven. And perhaps the plot wasn't quite as important for me as enjoying the action sequences.
I think I've done that whole old man thing again. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I don't care how funky your action is. If there's no plot and if there's a plot I can get behind, I'm not with you. Although Shaun, saying as you like Rogue One, have you watched Andor?
And I'm not keen on that. I watched a couple and I gave up.
Okay, all right, cool. Okay,
I
never
watched
mind
two
that.
of Andor, and I wasn't. Oh, if you've watched that, you'll have to. Maybe I might try and do it again. I found it very slow.
Oh no, I haven't watched any of it
Oh,
because,
you
quite
haven't?
frank, I haven't watched any of it because, quite frankly, a lot of Star Wars nowadays I cannot be bothered with.
No, no, no.
I cannot be bothered
I
with,
found
and
Andor hard. I wasn't so keen on Obi-Wan,
yeah.
but this last episode of Mando, I loved it because of the. I mean, there was those past few episodes. The action was first class. You know.
Yeah, I'll give you that there were some good action scenes. There were some good action scenes in it, but all in all, for me, it was at most a 3.
Yeah. Well, it's a big 4 for me. I mean, I take on board and I totally appreciate what you're saying with, and the observations you've made. I hadn't really noticed, but I can now. Now you've pointed them out, I can actually see what you're saying with the. You're right. He didn't need IG, did he? He didn't need IG because he was quite.
pointless.
I mean, when
pointless.
when those Praetorian guards were after him, he was sort of, avoiding everything, wasn't he? Really, but stuck in that. That's even a bit. You're more likely to get hit. And no, yes. Then.
Just
But
pointless.
anyway, perhaps it was so they could get him to move about. Maybe perhaps it was. Yeah.
Oh, and also the animation or the movement of Grogu moving around, hate it.
Yeah.
I think it looks horrible. I think it looks amateurish. But never mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No. That's it. I know, Tosin. I take on board exactly what you say, and I can see where you're coming from. Totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I will always give that show props for being the thing that brought me back into Star Wars, because after the Rise of Skywalker, I was out.
Yeah.
I was out. All right, but anyway, let's move on to cinema and let's talk about the unlikely pilgrimage of Harold Fry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, please take it away.
Yeah, it is based on a best-selling novel, which I will have to tell you, I haven't read.
Oh, there is one.
I haven't read it. But it is basically the story, so I can't do a compare and contrast like I normally do. It is just a film that I can review. It is a story of it starts off with an elderly couple, Harold and his wife. I believe her name is Marion, though it might have gone. But yeah, an ordinary sort of suburban couple. They're living in South Devon in a bungalow where quite a stark existence, it seems like, because when you look into their house, everything is spotless. There's no pictures on the walls. There's no ornaments. It's literally just settee, armchairs, television. That's it in the front room. Their lives look almost like quite stark. And then one day, a handwritten letter is delivered to the house, which is quite unusual because they don't get correspondence. And this letter is from a former friend of Harold's, who he hasn't seen for 30, 40 years. And it's basically telling him that she's now in a hospice in Berwick-on-Tweed, and that she's receiving end-of-life care. And she just wanted to basically say goodbye, and that she valued their friendship, that they had many years ago. And Harold decides that he's going to write back to say that I'm really sorry about this news, but sending you my best regards from Harold. And one morning he goes out to post it, and he walks to the nearest post office and at the post box and thinks, oh, I don't know. So then he thinks, I'll walk to the next post box and I'll post it there. I just need to think about this, if this is the right thing to do. And then he walks to the next post office and the post box, and he decides, actually, I'm still not sure. So he then keeps walking to the next post box, and then he basically has this sort of moment where he thinks, I'm not going to post this letter. I'm going to take it to her, and I'm going to walk there. I'm going to walk from South Devon to Berwick-upon-Tweed, which is, as someone says in the film, that's 500 miles. And he takes nothing with him. He basically just starts walking. And the end of the first day, he calls his wife and says, I'm going to walk to see Queenie. Queenie is his friend of his. And looking back at history, if you look at pilgrimages, they're normally done for sort of several reasons. There's a quest element to it. You're looking to find something at the end of your pilgrimage, or you're doing it for some sort of penance, or you're looking for something. You're looking for an answer to something by going on this pilgrimage. It's an emotional journey. So there's like these 3 elements, and they all do combine in Harold's story. And so as he walks, he encounters different people, and each person he meets, he gets something different from them. One of them is a man who um, sort of almost like he's once a confidant. He's a young man who's been a drug addict, and he's looking for a father figure. And there's another woman who's an immigrant who was a doctor in her own country, but now she's cleaning, and she takes him in and sort of looks after him. And it's like the kindness of strangers. And the further he walks, the more he sort of leaves behind. He decides that he's not going to, because initially he sort of stays in B&Bs and hotels, and he uses his credit cards to buy himself what he needs. And then he decided to know that he's actually doesn't want to make it easy on himself. He wants to do it as simply as possible. So he posts back his cards, his credit cards, his wallet, his phone, and his watch to his wife, and says, I'm going to walk to there, and I'm going to rely entirely upon what I can find, what I can forage, or what people's given me. I'm going to do this in a different way. And so he basically starts walking. And you see sort of different points on the way. You see him arriving at Exeter, and then he walks through Bath, and then you see him in Sheffield, and he's sort of walking throughout the country. And he's doing this quite happily, just literally relying upon the kind of strangers, sleeping in barns. He finds a sleeping bag, so he just sleeps in the woods. He just makes his way up country, but then he meets this one guy who says, "Oh, can I take your picture?" And then he contacts the papers, and suddenly he becomes this like mini celebrity, where where he goes, it's like, "You're Hal Fry, and we're going to walk with you." And then before he knows it, he becomes like the head pilgrim in this sort of Canterbury Tales, sort of all these people suddenly swarm around him, and it's like a mini Glastonbury everywhere he goes, where they set up tents.
It sounds very Forrest Gump.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly. I was going to say exactly the same, Toes.
Yeah, so it has those elements where he sort of draws, where he's sort of just like running along, doesn't people just start running with him? And this is where they start walking with him, and this sort of circus of appears around him basically. And yeah, he has these sort of encounters, and it says when he gets this sort of collection of people around him, he realizes that people are sort of investing in him their own ideas of what it should be about. But really, all he wants to do is walk to see Queenie, and and all these other people are doing it they're just like joining him, and he's like, no. And one of them in the end says that you've got to leave all this behind. This is slowing you down. This is taking too much of your time.
Is it
behind and go?
Sharon, can I ask you, is it always good weather, or does he ever get caught out in the rain and stuff?
Yeah, there is rain and there is sort of bad weather. A lot of it is set in the autumn because he's eating blackberries. So it's sort of like end of summer, autumn. But yeah, there is rain, there is cold, and you do see him sort of a bit miserable at times. But yeah, so it's like this pilgrimage, and he does make it to the end, but I won't tell you about it. But on the way, you do see him examining the elements of his life what has caused him the most pain. One of them is the relationship with his son, and to some degrees, the sort of how him and his wife have become sort of like they're together, but they're separate. Their lives are like running parallel with each other, that they don't really interact. As one of them says, we haven't really been married for 25 years, and then you look back and you see his through this sort of backstory, what happened sort of 25 years ago that caused this. Not enough to separate them, as in that they left each other. They still stayed together, but there was always this like invisible barrier between them. And it's both of them sort of work through, just their history together. So Harold is walking, and she's sort of walking through it, not moving, but going on a similar journey. So it's interesting how they use these parallels between the ideas of old pilgrimage. You have a quest, you're seeking something, and you're seeking redemption, or you're offering it as a penance. And so there's those elements running through it, that he's seeking something. He wants to see Queenie. He's seeking repentance because of something that happened in the past, and that quest element, that looking for peace. So there's all those elements are in it, which it's interesting.
All right, cool. So, sorry, I'm muted. You can't hear me. So, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I like part of me, because it's not religious. He's not a religious man. Part of me is thinking, as a Christian watching it, I understand what pilgrimage means as a Christian, and ultimately you're seeking the face of God, aren't you? You're seeking some sort of something in your faith. Where he's a man without faith, to me, it's that a bit pointless. So that's just me.
Yep.
And so I thought it was interesting, but ultimately I'll be like, oh, it's pointless if you're just doing it. So I didn't find it had any sort of spiritual depth to it. I found it interesting in terms that he went on this emotional journey and he sort of reconciled himself to sort of elements of his past. But to me, it lacked any of that sort of spiritual element of that reconciliation or that penance or seeking a greater understanding of their place in the world. So I found that dissatisfying because I thought when you see pilgrimage, I'm thinking, oh, hopefully there'd be some sort of like spiritual revelation, and there isn't. So for
Is
me,
it Jim Broadbent? Is it Jim Broadbent?
Jim Broadbent, yeah.
Yeah, see, I mean, with Jim Broadbent, I got a bit fed up with him.
Yeah,
I got a bit fed up with him. Can I say that?
I was going to say, this is Shaun. Shaun's about to sort of lambast another national beloved treasure. You're going to put him on the shelf with Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, national treasures. I know, it's horrible. What they call him, iconoclast, isn't it, or something?
Yeah. So I think for me it was slightly dissatisfying, and again, he was likable, but he is like his character is like trademark Jim Bent, likable.
Yeah.
So I was sympathetic. So he wasn't like a curmudgeon, the old man, because he was like this mellow, mild old man. People probably would help him if he'd been an old curmudgeon stomping along. People probably wouldn't, maybe not been as kind. But anyway, I find it was an interesting film. It made me think about different things. Probably not what the filmmaker or the writer intended. But no, I liked it. But I would only give it a 3.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was engaging for what it was, but ultimately it left me slightly dissatisfied with it on any deeper level. To me, it was interesting, but it didn't actually go any deeper than I thought it could have done.
All right, so 3 stars for The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, longest title this week. And so it's a title you have to think before you say it each time. You're like All right, and now we go back to Netflix and Friends, and now we're with Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus, and this is Ghosted, starring Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. So this is a film that Shaun's already kind of like, ooh. I feel like that's like a Pavlovian thing now. Anytime you say Ana de Armas, Shaun just goes, ooh. What happens if I say Mia Goth?
Oh.
All right, cool. So
Florence Pugh. They're my top 3.
So who is the third person?
Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh. Oh yeah, that's Florence Pugh as well. And it's kind of like you have like your lauded actresses bench, which is like Florence Pugh, Ana de Armas, and Mia Goth, and you only ever seem to have hatred for male actors with your Stanley Tucci's, your Jim Broadbent. You're like, everybody loves them. It's a lie.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
All right. So.
I do like. There are some male actors I like. My top male actors, contemporary actors, would be Brad Pitt and Leonardo.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, Ana de Armas and Chris Evans are in this movie. And the whole idea behind this is that they meet. It's like a sort of the meet cute, and it starts off looking like also almost romantic comedy-ish. He's a guy who is a farmer. He works on a family farm, and he's at a farmer's market. And then Ana de Armas walks in, and he's like, ooh, and so he goes and does this whole thing where he's trying to sell her a plant. Yeah, essentially he has a Shaun reaction. He has a Shaun reaction to Ana de Armas walking in. And he goes to try and sell her a plant, and then they have this whole thing where it doesn't quite go that well when he's trying to sell her a plant, and there's this whole thing about trying to have the plant as a metaphor for what's going on in her life and whether she looks after the lice, and because he's recently been dumped, and so he has all these issues with her, and then someone afterwards sort of points out to him and goes, you idiot, you don't realize that she was flirting with you. He's like, what? He's like, she was flirting with you. And he's like, oh. So he goes after her after the initial thing, and it's all very romantic comedy-ish. And it then, for the first bit of the movie, the first 20 minutes or so, it seems like it's trying to be, before sunrise, where it's essentially, like, how you had Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy just walking around Paris chatting. That's what this film is for the first 20 minutes. It's just them walking around Washington, D.C., having this date, a bit like the Harold Fry thing, where they go, oh, yeah, oh, you know what? Let's just go out for lunch. Okay, no, let's go out for a coffee. Oh, let's go out for lunch. Oh, there's this bar I know, let's go for a drink. Oh, let's go out for dinner. Oh, yeah, let's go. Oh, do you want to come back to my place? And it just carries on like that, like the first 20 minutes of the movie are that.
Does it compare with Rye Lane at all? That sort of.
Heck no. So
no, I didn't think so.
No, Rye Lane is so much more better and so much more. Rye Lane is so much more better. It's so much more naturally feeling. It feels like it flows. I think there's better chemistry between the leads in that. And in Rye Lane, everybody looks like they have their own hair.
Yeah.
So, because there is a really weird thing that has gone on. And it was one of these, you know, Shaun, how you notice things in films and you start complaining.
Yeah.
I rarely ever notice something that really gets up my nerve, unless it's going to be something to do with, like, you know, getting the geography of Africa wrong or referring to Africa like, you know, it's a country. That but there's a scene in there where they talk. I'm going to call it's about the Exorcist steps, because they talk about this. They have this thing about, oh, this is where they filmed the Exorcist and everything like that. They this scene where they have it, and I was watching it, and they have the close up of Ana de Armas, and I was like, what is up with her hairline? That is something really wrong with that hair. What is going on there? And I was like, and I look at her going, oh my God, yeah, she must be wearing a wig. And I'm thinking, why is she wearing a wig? It's Ana de Armas. She has lovely hair. Why would she be wearing a wig? And I just thought that I'd let it go. And it turns out this is like a big, massive thing. People are talking about this film online, going, why the hell? Oh my God, couldn't they find a better wig? And it's so distracting.
Wow.
But then it turns out that he tries to get in touch with her after the date. He tries to send her a message and say, oh, so great, it was great meeting you and all that kind of, and this is where the title comes from. Because Sharon, I'm not sure if you know this, but the kids nowadays, if you go on a date with somebody and you try and get in touch with them and they don't get back in touch with you, it is called being ghosted. That's what they said. And so that's what I only found this out like a year ago, but that's what the title comes from. That he gets ghosted and he thinks, oh my God, oh maybe I've put her off or anything like that. And through a variety of different things, he gets convinced because of filmic reasons, he can somehow track where she is, which is not problematic at all. The fact that you go on a date with one person that you can track her, not problematic at all. He can track where she is, and then he finds out that she's in London. And he decides to fly all the way to London to surprise her, from America to surprise her. At which point it turns out that she is essentially James Bond. Exactly. At which point it turns out that she's James Bond. She is a CIA super spy. She's a CIA super spy, and I can't remember what her name is, the something man. And he gets confused for being this CIA super spy that the bad guys are looking for. He gets captured, and then it tries to turn into a romp, which is like, you know, a Romance in the Stone James Bond adventure where they go around the world. They go to Pakistan, they go to all these different countries, and all the while it's supposed to be a romantic comedy while they're figuring stuff out between each other. That is the complicated story of this film, and then from then on, it does what it does. Now, this is a very weird film in that it's directed by Dexter Fletcher. Almost everybody who's in this film, I'm like, these are good people. Ana de Armas, Chris Evans, yes, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The chemistry between them is stilted. There's bits where I don't understand. I know, okay, so Ana de Armas, I can't remember exactly where she's from, but obviously I don't think English is not her first language. And there's scenes where it feels like they've edited them in such a way that it makes it really obvious that English is not her first language, if you get what I mean. So they've edited it in such a way where somebody will say a line, and then there'll be this random pause of a second longer than it should be, and then she'll say her line, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then it's a kind of film. Let me put it this way: it made me want to go back and watch all of Dexter Fletcher's other films and see if he's actually a good director, because I actually think he is a good director. I mean, I like Sunshine on Leith. He directed that. I think
excellent film.
Yeah, exactly. But this is just a weird kind of film that made me want to go back and go, hang on, did I get this wrong? Is this guy not good? Because this film is kind of shoddily edited. It's shoddily edited. It's weirdly directed, and it's supposed to be a romp. You can see it has rump written all over it. It has everything in place for it to be a rump, and it doesn't work. Like the bickering between them back and forth doesn't work. The end set piece that comes up doesn't work. The one bit of the film where I thought, okay, this is beginning to take off. This is beginning to take off. Is that they have a whole bunch of cameos, a bit like Shaun. If you remember Bullet Train.
Yeah.
You know how Bullet Train had all these cameos in it. Yeah. They have this, but they have this scene which I call is almost like a cameo chain, where they do. It's a bit kind of like John Wick, where there's a whole bunch of assassins and everything like, and how they hand off from one person to the other person, and there's all these cameos. And at that bit, I actually thought was quite funny, and I thought, where is it? We'll tell you in a second, Kemi. And I thought, okay, this is beginning to work, but then it stops, and then there's a bit at the end where they have one other random cameo that doesn't link to anything else that happened in the film, and it looks like it was just there for the sake of it. Then when I started thinking about it, I was thinking, I think they did some rewrites or they did some reshoots, because because this character shows up and then he starts referring to stuff that I think it was supposed to be in another area of the film but never happened. It's like, no, it was like and so it's just this weird thing where it's the stereotypical thing of you feel like the people who were making this film were having way more fun making the film than you are having watching it. And I cannot, in any good conscience, as much as I love everybody who's involved in this film, give it any more than 2 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh.
It's which is a shame, because when I saw the synopsis for the film, I thought, oh, okay, well, that could make a good film. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, Ana de Armas. Ever since she showed up in that Bond movie, kicking some butt, it's like, they've been giving us some more butt kicking stuff. It's quite good. She does the butt kicking quite well. But okay, can we go get that? But everything else, I just think the film just doesn't work. Anyway, it's a bit like Van Helsing in that respect. But anyway, that's us done for this week. And quickly, before I get driven mad by somebody saying "daddy, daddy, daddy," who do you think has won this week?
I think it's got to be cinema. I think it's got to be.
Yep.
Got to be cinema.
Sharon?
Cinema.
Yeah, it was cinema. It was cinema, because I think. Well, I was gonna say Netflix and Friends didn't even make it up to a 4, but I mean, Sharon did give The Mandalorian a 4, and I said no, and I diluted that score. But yeah, we had 4 for the Musketeers d'Artagnan, 3 for Evil Dead Rise, 3 for Harold Fry, 3.5, and 2 on the Netflix side of things. So cinema has won! Yay!
Yay! Cinema.
Vive la révolution! All right, cool, good stuff. So until next week, when we'll see if I'm able to do a podcast recording by myself without anybody else in the room with me, and in which there should be 4 of us on here, and we should all have seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which we shall all have a big, massive, probably 20-minute discussion about. It is a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.